Welcome to a special edition of the Inside Five presented by the Playmakers. I'm Nicole Feyh, and today we're going to talk a little about the success of the Kansas City Chiefs draft picks. Now, if you remember in May, we did a segment over the Chiefs draft picks and their projections, but now it's time to put those grades to the test and see just how well Kansas City has actually stacked up going into Week 11. Now, numbers-wise, 8 of 9 draft picks made the 53-man roster. On the team now, only 7 of 9. If you will remember as well, the Chiefs traded their first-round pick and their 7th-round pick to the 49ers for a 2nd, a 4th, and a 6th. That, in my opinion, is because GM John Dorsey loves those middle-round draft picks. Travis Kelce, Now Davis, Phillip Gaines, Chris Conley, Steven Nelson, just to name a few there. So we moved to the 2nd round. We grabbed Chris Jones, the defensive tackle out of Mississippi State. Jones has started 4 of 9 games, has 15 total tackles and 2 sacks, the first of which was against Indianapolis, and the second just this past Sunday against Carolina. His stats, in my opinion, though, are a little misleading, especially as the pass rush presence that he's been as of late. Now, defensive lineman Allen Bailey moved to the IR after the Raiders win, as well as linebacker Justin March-Lillard. Dontari Poe and Jay Howard have had an increased role because of that, but with the injury to Howard, Jones's role became very pertinent to the defense's success, and he works well as a tandem with Dee Ford, as was illustrated in the Carolina game with those back-to-back sacks. Jones, I believed, was originally drafted to pad the possible re-signing of Dontari Poe, whose contract expires this year. But what actually aided in that was the September 14th release of 3rd-round pick Kaivari Russell. Russell was a highly touted cornerback coming out of Notre Dame, but he was beat out by DJ White, who has had a solid role opposite Marcus Peters when Phillip Gaines was injured. Russell started out the season at the bottom of the depth chart, and he honestly shouldn't have really made the active roster if the Chiefs were going to use the moves that they did on him. The Chiefs needed him to perform, especially after trading Marcus Cooper to Arizona. Now, immediately after, Kaivari Russell was signed off the waivers by the Bengals, and he remains on their active roster. Moving into the 4th round, the first pick was Parker Ahinger out of Cincinnati. Ahinger spent most of his time as the starting left guard when he wasn't injured. Zach Fulton has been stepping in, and he started his first game. He was doing very well, suffered a concussion in the next week in practice, and then Ahinger came back in Week 4, suffered a knee injury in Week 8 against Indianapolis, and was placed on the injured reserve on November 5th. Safety Eric Murray was the 2nd 4th-round pick, and most of his time has been spent on special teams. He's in a position that's very deep on the depth chart behind starters Ron Parker and Eric Berry. So his impact won't be soon, but he will provide a solid option if the club fails to retain Eric Berry after they missed that franchise deadline in July. However, in the time remaining, Murray will spend his time learning under one of the best safeties in the league. So he's played in all 7 games, recorded 3 tackles, and actually had a fumble return against the Jets. The 3rd 4th-rounder, Demarcus Robinson, wide receiver out of Florida. He's had a strong presence on special teams. He had 3 big tackles, but he's had multiple big misses as well. He's quick as a gunner, but sometimes I feel he gets a little too quick and he'll get juked easy. He won't necessarily see a lot of time at receiver, though, unless injury prevails. Now, if you'll remember, he has the potential to, because he emerged as one of the best wide receivers in this draft class, if it's in my opinion. So in the coming seasons, he'll be able to use that giant vertical, his straight line speed, and he's working on his route running a lot here in Kansas City. First of the 5th-round picks was Kevin Hogan, the quarterback out of Stanford. Now, he was my surprise of the Chiefs draft, but it wasn't for long. Hogan didn't make the 53-man roster behind Alex Smith, Nick Foles, Tyler Bray, and at that time, Aaron Murray, and Hogan was signed to the practice squad. Now, Hogan signed with the Cleveland Browns practice squad at the beginning of September, and if you'll remember, the Browns drafted Cody Kessler in the 6th round, but after an injury to him against Cincinnati, Hogan came in for minimal impact as a quarterback. He went 12 of 24, 100 yards, 2 interceptions, and had 2 sacks. But he had a maximum impact as a runner. He rushed for 104 yards and 1 touchdown. And the 2nd of the 5th round, and my personal favorite, is Tyreek Hill, who was drafted out of West Alabama. By now, you all know his story. Started out at Garden City Community College, went to Oklahoma State, had some domestic violence issues, lost his scholarship, and then was picked up by West Alabama. Now, his draft stock fell significantly after those domestic violence issues. John Dorsey took a chance on him, and initial analysis showed that he would be more of a return man, but he's moved up that offensive ladder quicker than anyone could have actually expected. He's producing solid stats as a receiver, and he provides a better option for jet sweeps than really DeAnthony Thomas does, just with his agility. In his returning, he's quick, he's agile, he slips through the seams, and he breaks tackles like he weighs 100 pounds more. He's actually had those 2 kickoff return touchdowns called back due to penalties, so his stats could be a bit more padded. But overall, he has 19 receptions, 223 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging around 12 yards per catch, and his longest was that 49-yard bomb from Nick Foles in Indianapolis. And he had a solid game against Indy, 5 receptions, 98 yards, 1 touchdown, and averaged around 20 yards. Then 2 weeks later, he racked up 89 yards on 10 receptions against Carolina. So Tyreek Hill's playing consistent, and he's honestly the most consistent of the Chiefs' draft picks. Now, the first of the 6 rounders was DJ White. He emerged as the best defensive back of the draft, even though he was drafted the last. An injury to Phillip Gaines forced White to step into the starting left cornerback position opposite of Marcus Peters. He recorded his only interception on a gift from Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Jets. And then in week 4, the Steelers tore him apart. He got beat actually on 6 of 6 targets. He's come back, he's bounced back, and he's had better games, and he's improved steadily in the weeks before that Saint game. Then, sadly, he suffered a fractured hand against the Saints. That required surgery, and White hasn't played or been active since. And finally, the last, but to me not least, Donnie Nicholas. Nicholas hasn't seen significant time on defense, but he showed an innate pass rush ability in the preseason, which surprised myself and a lot of other analysts as well. Now, he's in a strong linebacking core behind Justin Houston, Tamba Hali, Ramik Wilson, Frank Zombo, Dee Ford, and he'll have tough depth to battle in the years to come. But I do believe the Chiefs are likely to keep him around. Once again, he's going to be learning from some of the best, and that can only make you better. Overall, originally I gave the overall Chiefs draft a B, but after 11 weeks of play, though, I'm going to have to downgrade this to a C, since this rookie class's success isn't significantly less than the 2 before it. The Chiefs have built some of the most solid draft classes, and it was only a matter of time until one didn't live up to the last. However, it's a journalistic duty to keep grading this team up to that standard. That's all from me today. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to share. This has been another edition of the Inside 5 with yours truly. I sincerely hope you enjoyed, and remember to catch the Playmakers Central every Monday and Thursday at 6:30 p.m. and to follow us at Playmakers KU on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.